Hello and welcome to another episode of the Game Theory Podcast. This is episode 60, talking about sidekicks and player twos. What's up, David? How are you doing?
Oh, I am good. How are you doing?
Meh. No, I'm doing awesome, man.
How's
I'm
your son doing right now at this current moment?
I don't know. He's not here. He's at a baseball game. He's at a baseball game that I'm not at.
Why are you not at a baseball game? You're his father.
I hate kids, man.
That's true.
No, I was getting ready for the podcast today. When I say getting ready for the podcast, I mean I was playing Shadow of Mordor, and and then my wife was like, "Okay, well, come on, kids, you gotta get ready. We're gonna be leaving pretty soon." I was like, "What? Where are they going?" But a lot of times she goes to the store, so while I'm doing the podcast, so that it's not background noise. So that's what I thought was going on. And then as we're walking out the door, she's like, "Okay, well, if you get done in time, you can come." And I was like, "Where? Where are you guys going?" And they're like, the baseball game." I was like, "Oh my god, I can go," but I'm like super soured out right now. So I'm like greasy and disgusting, and I was just like, "Oh fuck, Doug, you gotta take a shower." And she's like, "No, we gotta leave right now." It's like, okay, but anyway,
Well, she understands where your priorities are and where they should be.
podcast, progeny, whatever. He's just gonna swing a bat at a ball a few times and then probably get hit in the face. He got a monster black eye the other day, actually.
That's
Pretty,
awesome.
pretty amazing. Baseball is like the weirdest thing. Like you throw something at someone as fast as you can, and they tell you to get behind it. I don't. I played baseball like casually for a while, and I never did that. I always caught it to the side a little. I'd step just to the side, so if I missed it, it wouldn't fucking hit me in the face, and
That
then I
makes
would
sense.
catch it with the side. So like unfortunately, I kind of translated that to footballs too. Sometimes I would try to catch footballs to the side, but I've learned better now to let it hit me in the chest. But I always caught things to the side. I don't even know why you even need to do that. Apparently, people aren't coordinated enough for that. I don't know.
But there was a big game yesterday with Arkansas. It's like made the headlines. Where do you see that fat guy pass?
No,
So
no.
apparently they did like a trick play where they gave the ball to the offensive lineman instead of the quarterback, and they were like, "Where's the ball?" And he was like, "Yoink!" And he like threw a touchdown pass with it. This big
Oh man,
350-pound guy. And
that's
yeah, so everybody was going crazy watching that. And I was like, I understand sports ball. I think that's fun too. And then they're like, oh, you don't get it. They're like, and some guy was like, imagine this. Imagine this. Okay, so you're playing StarCraft, right? And there's like the Zerg Rush. And you have like one little Protoss zealot, and he just holds it off by himself, and you turn around and win the game. Like, that's what just happened. I was like, yeah, but in that scenario, I'm playing StarCraft, so I'm excited. I'm not watching some play StarCraft. And he's like, oh, you just will never understand sports ball. Which is probably.
You're probably right. Although I don't know, I watch people play games. Speaking of watching people play games,
Mm.
we did that yesterday. The Extra Life charity, which is pretty big online right now. A bunch of people were starting up streams for that. So our buddy, friend of the show, JT Eberhard, he started a stream, and then it just went crazy. All of a sudden, he started getting like donations like left and right, and he made in the end. Do you know how much he made? It's like
Yeah,
1,300
he's
or
up
something.
to 1329.
1329. Yeah, it's crazy.
So
Yeah, we
that's
jumped
great.
on, and basically all it is the charity's really cool. It was made by gamers and it was for gamers. It's basically for kids who have cancer. You get them like games and bring them to them so they can play,
Right.
that kind of thing, which is totally awesome. So a lot of people got behind that, and especially in the wake of this whole Gamergate bullshit stuff, I'm glad they're doing it to put a good name back on gamers because we're not like that. Like that's just a couple assholes.
Right. It was great to see the generosity of these gamers who, over the course of what he played for a day, and earned almost $1,400.
Yeah, one day. But yeah, and we showed up on that stream too. I think I was on there almost all day playing
Yeah.
games with them. And then you guys popped in for a little bit, you and Tim, to play
Played
Left
some
4 Dead 2.
Borderlands and Left 4 Dead 2, and that ridiculous forced game.
Forced. Yeah. Yeah, that was weird. So yeah, it was fun. So whoever tuned in, if any of y'all did, then we appreciate it. And thanks for coming in. And
JT and I were talking about streaming a game of D&D and getting donations that way too.
Oh, that'd be cool.
People love watching D&D.
Yeah, that's fucking weird to me. Like I get the game watching people play games because it's like if you can't play a game right now, you might as well. But I don't get people watching people play D&D. But for some reason, that stuff's
Kinda
so
like
crazy.
radio dramas, I think. People just like to hear the stories.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess I've listened to a few. I don't understand watching it. Why
Yeah.
that's any better.
Well, then you get to see all the sexy D&D players.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Known to be a sexy lot demographically.
Us and Magic players, we are good looking.
Now, my brother actually came in to visit from Arkansas Wednesday. So he's been here the past few days, and I was able to actually tackle all the co-op games I never get to play co-op.
Really?
Yeah, so that was fun. I dropped him off Saturday, but it was great because he was, it's the first time since he's been married that he's just taken a vacation by himself.
Huh.
Normally when you go on vacation, you gotta bring your kids, you gotta bring your wife, and you're not really getting away from it all. You still have responsibilities. You still gotta take care of your kids, make sure they're fed and clothed and all other stuff the state mandates.
Yeah.
So this was his first time just being on his own, just totally free. He slept till 3:30 p.m. his first day. He was so sleep deprived.
Wow. So
Or maybe it was 2:30. Yeah, I think it was 2 or 2:30. But still, he slept a lot. And then we just broed out.
Did he get addicted?
Oh yeah, he loves the life. We played a lot of video games. Like I went through, I was like, Joseph, let me show you something. And the Wii U tracks all your stats for how long you've been playing. Like you played 5 hours of Hyrule Warriors yesterday. You watched 7 hours of Netflix or whatever he was doing.
Yeah.
He's just like, oh man, is that depressing when you look at that? I'm like, no, these are called achievements. You're living the dream now. We ended up doing a Sword Art Online marathon. He got into that.
Oh, really? Okay. I've only seen the
he-
first one.
Yeah, he wasn't really hooked. He's like, we watched 2 episodes. He's like, I'm not really into this. Is this gonna get better, or am I gonna like it more? And I'm like, I don't know. It might not be your thing because you have to be kind of a gamer to understand a lot of the references.
Mhm.
But I was like, if you want, we can watch something else. He's like, no, let's give it one more. So we watched the 3rd episode. And after that, he's like, let's watch another, and another, and another, and we just ended up watching them all because he got really into it after that.
Nice. Man, I've been watching The Walking Dead. I got caught up. Holy cow. It's getting good. They just got to a part that they did in the comics for a while.
Yeah. I know what part you're talking about. The end of the last episode from last week.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you're like, bon appetit, bastards.
Yeah. And that sucks because everyone's talking so crazy about it. They're like, the craziest shit just happened on Walking Dead. You have to watch it. And I was like, I read the comics. I got the better story. And they're like, no, man, just wait. It's so good. And I was like, all right, well, I'll check it out. So I watched it, and sure enough, they do things differently in the show for a while, but then this is something they already did.
Yeah, they brought it back.
One of the things. So
it was a good story point. I'm glad they brought it back in.
yeah, you have to do that. It's so good. So yeah, you guys should watch that. Like it.
For sure.
Cool. Well, let's go ahead and move into recent news. You know what I just thought of? I thought of remember our first episode? If you watch that YouTube video,
You love
the first part is David just like dancing. He's like to like no music, you can't hear it.
because only we can hear it.
Yeah, we can hear it, so it's pretty hilarious. He's like eating popcorn.
Doing a little dance. The production value of that episode was perfect.
Oh my god, it's the worst. Everybody hates the first episode, but Jesus, that one was hilarious. Yeah, so the recent news. First of all, one of them was just going to be about that extra life. That's kind of cool. Glad that's going on. And for anyone who took part in the stream, donated, or was streaming themselves, you guys are awesome. We appreciate that.
Especially if you donated.
Yeah, my mom showed up, actually, to the stream. I saw that at the end. Popped in. I was like, is that my mom? She's like, yes, it's Mom. I was like, oh, wow. Awesome.
So
Love my mom.
proud. So
Yeah.
proud to see your son accomplishing things.
But at that point, we were playing that Forced game, and we were just like cussing at the screen. We were just like, what is this? So, I don't know, whatever.
So what else is going on?
Well, there's some gaming research came out, and I thought I'd keep you guys abreast. Mostly about one of which being more skeptical of what you hear sometimes. Even research people sometimes do dumb stuff. One of them came out, and it was about couples in gaming. And
Like
what they did was
couples playing games together?
no, yeah, that would be a cool one. But this one was out of actually BYU. So most of the authors were out of BYU. And so I'm sure you can guess what if they were on the pro or anti video game side. Which one do you suspect?
They were probably of the side that couples should spend less time playing video games and more time being a family because families are forever.
Yeah, yeah, I suspect they came out of that camp. And there was two big names from like the other side in the research: Gentile, Douglas A. Gentile, and Brad Bushman. And Bushman's just a dick. That guy's a dick. He's just so mean. Like if you even try to talk to him at a convention or something, and you'd say like, "Oh, I'm a little skeptical of the pro side of things," you know, the fact
They're
of
like,
violence.
"Fuck you! Yes!
Yeah,
Got
like, fuck you, cock ass. No, but he's an angry dude. He turns literally red, and he got a big old beard. But yeah, that guy, he was one of the authors. Anyway, what did the research say? Well, what they looked at was looking at how what they measured relational aggression, or by proxy, they had self-reported things, and physical and
always very
relational
accurate.
aggression. Yeah, and they wanted to see how that would correlate to video game play. So, what do you think they found?
So wait, they're measuring physical relationship aggression or just
Physical
any
and relational aggression, which relational aggression is stuff like
microaggression things like?
exactly, yeah.
They probably found that the more time the husband plays video games, the more aggression he has towards his wife.
Yeah, that's what they found. They found a small relationship there, which I thought was really dumb because. Okay, so my skepticism about this. What do you have some initial skepticism about this yet?
Well, my initial skepticism is that BYU tends to have a slight, sometimes unconscious bias towards 1950s family values. So anything that would be considered conservative or, like one mother, one father, mother's at home, father's working, any research they can find to support that kind of leave it to beaver kind of family life, they'll tend to kind of slant themselves towards that bias.
Right.
Because most BYU researchers have the idea that a prophet of God has decreed that it must be so through the proclamation of the world. So that'd be my first concern, is just like, did they overcome their innate bias from their religious background?
Yeah, which is easy. Like demand characteristics is something that happens in research a lot, and that just means like if the person can guess what the point of the research is, a lot of times they'll unconsciously act towards that. And we've demonstrated that over since the 1950s. People will like if they find out that they're supposed to be aggressive towards something, then if they look at it in the research or give some indication that that's what they're supposed to do, they tend to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that, and that's why I'd never run my statistics on my research before I finish it, because I'm terrified I'm going to do something, to be biased towards it. And I really just want to know what the effect is.
Right.
But that's what I'm concerned about. But the thing that methodologically that made me go, what the fuck is they measure those two things correlatively, the relationship between them, and I don't. So the more someone does something by themselves,
The less
the more
good they are at being part of a couple?
the more conflict they have. Yeah, no shit. I mean, I bet football nuts have the same thing. I bet everybody, woodworking people work on the cars all day. Anything, whatever it is, if you're robbing your wife of time and you're doing something that's that they see as recreational to do that, then they're going to be a little upset. And so I was like,
Did they also look at the whole bidirectionality of it? Like if you are spending a lot of time away from your wife playing video games, there might be problems in the relationship already. That's why you're avoiding her.
Exactly. Yeah, that was my second criticism. It's the bidirectional. Like, what comes first? And yeah. So what the hell? And it's just it's not the methodology that bothers me. That's fine. They did some research and they did some weird shit with it. It's the interpretation. Because if you put at the bottom in the discussion section, if you're like, yeah, we don't know anything about this, but just keep in mind these are correlated. We need more research. That would be fine. But instead, they said no. It's actually the fact that video games increase aggression even towards your loved ones, such as your spouse. And I'm like, wow, that was a causal statement with no addendum there. Wow,
Right.
it's just bad. These folks, these guys do this a lot. Like, this isn't the only research they do this with, but it's typically video game stuff. And it baffles me that this can get put in a peer-reviewed journal with. Yeah, it's crazy. Just because of who they are. Like, you don't turn away a paper right now from some of the big dogs, which is, Gentile, Bushman, Anderson, even Ferguson's becoming a big deal now. But it's politics, man. Even in science, it's crazy. So anyway,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
looking at the article now, it's the methodologies. They sampled a pretty big sample size, and
Mhm.
But this is interesting. The results show that for men but not women, time spent playing video games was associated with increased conflict.
Hmm.
Does that mean did they? What do they mean by that? Did they find an equal a number of men and women playing, or was it just there were more men that play video games and therefore more men had conflict?
Well, what they're suggesting is that men become more aggressive, but
But
all
not
they
women in the same scenario?
yeah, which where how do you interpret that, right? Like I would say, well, it's probably because women probably on average out of 1,333 people, women typically don't play violent video games or
Yeah,
action games.
that's what I was wondering. Like, did they make that assumption because more men were more aggressive in that study, or did they actually control for like, well, there weren't that many women playing the video games in the study, so we can't make that assumption yet?
Oh no, that's a crazy thing. These guys, Bushman's a little better about this, but typically these guys never control for anything, and that was the biggest criticism of Ferguson, friend of the show, is he calls them third variables, and just because they only ever measure two, they're just like aggression, video game use, and that's it. And you're like, well, yeah, but what else is going on there? You can't do a study without looking at everything. So it's just sloppy. It's just sloppy, shitty research, and it's crazy how it keeps coming out like this.
Yeah, that's too bad. BYU tries to call itself the Harvard of the West, but I think that's only BYU that calls itself that because you have to raise your and I've got 2 degrees from BYU, so I would love it if they would raise their academic prestige so I could put that on my resume and not have to be embarrassed about it because it's a hard school to get into. It takes a pretty good grades to get into the school, and there are some academically rigorous things happening there. But when you publish things like this, it just tarnishes the reputation of the school in general.
Yeah, and now they're kind of known as a laughingstock because that farm or whatever, the research that they do for themselves by themselves,
Yeah.
and publish in their own journals. Like you can't do that shit and get away with it anymore. There's this thing called the internet. It's a big
Right.
deal. Yeah. Anyway, there was another study too, and I won't really go into it, but they found that like people who played games where you were betrayed aggressively, like the person who committed violence against you as they betrayed you, the bad guy, or the ones where you were just aggressive and you weren't betrayed. Aggressive, violent, you're killing shit. It's Half-Life, basically, modded Half-Life. And then control, and then there was a control condition where you just like solved the puzzle. They found that people, and the interpersonal trust was something they looked at, and that went down, and they attributed that to the aggression because it was about the same across the betrayal and the aggression section. Anyway, I consistently I read a lot of this research and I'm constantly like, what the fuck? Like what the actual fuck? You can't play a video game. You can't be a gamer at least and commonly play video games and believe this shit. Like, do you not trust? Like, let's say we just played Shadow Mordor for fucking hours, right? Are you less trustful now? Like, if you the test would be like this: if someone came to the door and they said, "Here's $5.33 for your pizza," let's say you paid them in cash for some reason, would you count it and then like look at the person and suspect that they stole from you? That's kind of the methodology. Fuck no, you wouldn't. That's stupid. Clearly, you're doing shit with that. Like, I mean, it's insane. It's insane the shit that they suggest. They said
I know this is anecdotal, but I've been betrayed thousands of times in video games. There's always the inevitable betrayal, and I am still pretty trusting in real life. Like, I tend to assume the best of people.
They do these pen and paper measures, and they don't do these these actual shit like I'm doing in my research to show. And that's why I'm doing it, because I'm like, look, they may spike on this pen and paper research bullshit that you guys somehow made with horrible reliability and validity as a horrible measure. But look, in real life, none of that shit happens. Get your shit straight, man. And I haven't run my data yet, but I'm going to next weekend, I think, and I'm gonna blow the fucking lid off this bullshit. Can't wait. So sick of it.
Yeah, it's weird that. It's weird that people who don't really understand gaming try to make a study of it without even consulting gaming. There must be psychologists that are gamers, right? Like, it's a pretty common hobby.
Rarely, because as scientists, I mean, if you're an experimental scientist, you have almost no time. So there really aren't that many gamers in experimental psychology.
Well, there should be.
Yeah, there should. No shit. That's why, and it's difficult. It's difficult to play games and keep up. And if anything, I'm going a little slow, but I don't care. Like I don't need to get rid of that for any reason. That's my hobby. There's a guy who's a runner. He's training for a marathon, and that's his thing that gets in his way. There's another guy who he always throws parties at his house, like not like drinking, getting crazy, just like get-togethers, and that's his thing. Yeah. Everybody minus like maybe 4 or 5 of the grad students out of like 50 is It's got a few things that hold them back. So I
Yeah,
don't.
everyone's got a hobby. That's normal.
Yeah, it's weird that video games become like this isolated idea.
Yeah,
But
it's
anyway,
like
whatever.
the hobby of death.
I don't mean to like belabor this point too much. I just wanted to keep you guys up to date on like so that you're defended. If you ever say anything from this podcast, like you listen to me and you actually parrot that and say like, no, violent video games don't cause violence, and you hear this bullshit, you'll be able to counter it because it's such shit. All good research. Literally, this was done in a meta-analysis where they examined the methodology and they had levels of rigor, high, middle, and low, like just correlational. But anything high, all of it. All but like I think one, yeah, Sherry, 2001, yeah, showed no correlation at all. And you can't prove a negative, so we can't say anything about that. We can only just say, yeah, there's probably not. To the
Right.
point now where we're pretty damn sure. And all the low-level shit all showed some tendency, and they almost all came from this camp, like Anderson, Bushman, Gentile, those guys. It's crazy. Anyway, and it's funny that you know what's crazy is that research from other countries almost never show a correlation, and like we're the only ones who have like a little
That's what I'm
camp.
saying. It's that cultural / religious bias that people bring with them. Like we come from that puritanical thing that's unique to America. Like other countries don't share that heritage with us,
Mm-hmm.
and so we come in innately distrustful of anything violent or sexual, and it's gonna start showing up in research, even if unless you're very careful to control for it.
Yeah, I know. That's why we're so crazy about our methodology. Like, if one tiny thing goes wrong, I throw the participant out. And I'm like, nope, I can't trust that. Like, if someone asks me a question of what one of the words means on the measure, I'm like, all right, you're gone, because I can't. You can't fuck around with that. If I help him, then he may be more likely to be more pro-social.
Right.
So, anyway, there's that, and there's this crazy thing. People do this thing called pilot testing, quote unquote. This is another thing to help you defend against some of this bullshit if you hear it. To all those out there, I think David's heard me talk about this, but what they do is they pilot test it, which means this: we try it for a little bit, and then we run the data, and then here's the crime, and then we adjust fire if it's not how we want it, basically. And that was actually published. Anderson published that in a 2010 paper. He actually admitted it, and he said, yeah, we ran this pilot study. It was coming up crazy, so we adjusted, and here's what it looked like. And I was like, wow, first of all, that was awesome for you to admit that. But second of all, that should have fucked you on this thing. But it was aggression in media, a thing that he's one of the editors at. And I was like, you can't be an editor at your own thing and publish in your own. That's fucking horrible. Like,
Yeah,
anyway,
it's pretty incestuous.
it's crazy. It's crazy. I can't wait for the new generation to take this over. It'll be just like radio and or movies and everything else there, where everybody had this witch hunt and then it just died out because they found out that nobody's becoming more violent.
There's less violence as there are more games. Like that's a correlation no one talks about.
Yeah, I know. The only people who do is our side, because we're like, wait a minute. And there was a journalist actually who just did that. It was on a show. It was like CNN or something, and they were interviewing some guy who was talking about shootings and stuff. And he throws it out there. It's this public bullshit myth where he was like, oh yeah, well, you know, violent video games are coming out, and they're more than ever, and there's a lot of school shootings now. And he says like, well, school shootings. So you're talking about what's it called, the mimic, some social psychology bullshit word, mimic effect, basically, or something like that, where basically murderers will copy the methodology of other murderers, but they don't. It doesn't become more popular. It gives this illusory correlation, like, oh my gosh, more, icebox killers are happening, and therefore violence is up. And you're like, no, that's just more icebox killers. Look, the statistics are still going down. It's just that they copy their methodology. Same thing with the school shootings. The kids were violent all the time and shot fucking tons of people, but now with how much fucking news attention we give it, let me stop cussing. I'm really fired up right now. All this news attention we gave it, it is of course going to cause more copycats, basically copycat killers. So
right.
Yeah,
but previously those killers would have just killed in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. The statistics are
It's
still
not
down.
causing more violence. It's just causing more of a certain type of violence, but less overall violence still.
Yeah, and not just kind of less, a lot less. People don't talk about, they say significant a lot because they mean statistical, but the effect size is large. I mean, it's just dropping like drastically. We're getting better. We're becoming better people and playing a lot more violent video games.
It's what Chris Ferguson calls the phantom youth violence problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
a problem that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, and when we get old, we might do it too. We might look at the young generation and be like, what the fuck? They're playing all this, or I don't know what it is playing. Maybe it's taking some stimulant or something, and then we're like, oh, that's in the future, let's say it's legal to take some kind of stimulant, and we're like, that it's ruining our culture, but we just need to be sensitive to objective criteria.
Right.
Whatever. Anyway, what's the news for you?
Well, just one thing, and I know people are sick of Gamergate. I'm sick of Gamergate too. But Felicia Day, this headline. It just made. I just had to share it. Felicia Day says she's afraid of Gamergate doxing her. Immediately gets doxed. So
Wow.
she wrote. She's been quiet on this for a while. She's kind of the token B-list celebrity gamer geek. Felicia Day. She's been in stuff. She's worked with Joss Whedon on a lot of things. She expressed her worst fears about the Gamergate movement, and she said that if she spoke up against it, she was afraid her personal information would be spread on the internet. Personally, I'm terrified to be doxxed for even typing the word Gamergate. So for those of you who don't know, doxxed just means like people revealing your personal information, like your address and stuff like that. So she says, I'm terrified to be doxxed for even typing the words Gamergate. I've had stalkers and restraining orders issued in the past. I've had people show up on my doorstep when my personal information was hard to get, she wrote. And as soon as she posted that, somebody commented with the username Gamergate, Gaimerg8, posted with what he claimed was her address and personal information in the comment section.
What the fuck, man? Felicia Day, really? Wow.
Right. So it's just.
What is going on, man? It's crazy.
Yeah.
There's people like just watching this hashtag or like it's constantly refreshing. They have Google alerts and stuff up, and as soon as it happens, like there's this army of douchebags who come out and oh my god, it's the worst.
Yeah, and it's only for women. Like freaking who is it? Chris Clue, the ex-NFL kicker, who's a gamer. He like condemned Gamergate to call him a bunch of slow-browed weasel dicks. And he also tweeted, "For the record, none of you fucking Gamergate tools tried to dox me, even after I tore you a new one. I'm not even a tough target. Said you go after a woman who wrote why your movement concerns her. Fuck Gamergate and anyone aligned with it." So it's like it seems like they really do target women more than men, or at least the people, the trolls on the Gamergate agenda. Which I'm not saying that everyone in Gamergate is a troll, but it seems like there are like, let's say there's 15 trolls on the internet, and they just have these alerts that go up, and they are really just proving people like Felicia Day's concerns valid. She's like, I'm afraid if I speak out against them, I'll get doxxed. And they're like, oh yeah, doxxed.
That's the weirdest response. I never got that.
Yeah.
I don't understand these people. I've never met one, and so I don't know. I've met hundreds
Hundreds of gamers.
hundreds of gamers.
Yeah.
Never met a douchebag like that. I've met some misogynistic gamers, but I've met more misogynistic football guys. So I don't think that that's
A gaming thing. So much as a cultural male thing.
I tend to find gamers good people for the most part. I've never met.
Yeah, they just donated
Well, I've met
a ton of money to sick kids with cancer yesterday. Like
in one day, yeah.
I think gamers are great people, but we just have these. I don't know. To me, it doesn't make sense. It's like those people who will burn down a U.S. embassy when somebody implies that Islam is a violent religion. It's like,
Yeah.
you're just helping that. You're making that more true with your actions.
Yeah, and most Muslims are not bad people, and so, but you're making it look like that.
Yeah,
So
you're making it worse.
But I don't know. Anyway, it's crazy nonsense. I did want to mention that BlizzCon, Blizzard announced that there's this convention for Blizzard folks, people who like Blizzard games, called BlizzCon, and it's huge. It's like a big deal every year. People freak out about this game, about this thing. I don't get it. But anyway, they finally announced their music people, and it's Metallica.
Nice.
Yeah, they're so weird. They're all like a bunch of metalheads there, I'm pretty sure. But,
yeah, well, they've got those Taurens with the electric guitars.
Yeah, Elite Torrent Chieftain, ETC. Yeah, It's good times. But anyway, so that's anything else in the news huge?
No, it's relatively quiet.
All right, well, cool. I guess let's move on to gaming experiences. All right, this is gaming experiences, where we talk about the games we've been playing, because we are actually gamers.
It's
not
true.
Not just academic folks. So yeah, gaming experiences. I guess the most recent one is this Extra Life marathon with the JT, right?
Yep, we played the Bunkers and Borderlands 2 thing, Bunkers and Badasses with him.
We didn't get to play very long though.
Yeah, he was remarkably too low level to play for much, so we switched games. The problem with Borderlands 2, I wish they would like equalize everybody's level the way like Guild Wars 2 does,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so that JT just kind of felt useless the whole time.
That is weird that it's a co-op game that's like so level dependent.
Yeah, because the problem with co-op games is sometimes you want to play them when your friends aren't online, but you can't with Borderlands 2 because you'll get too high level for them.
Yeah, it's so weird. So yeah, we played it for a while, but he was completely ineffectual. So he kind of got bored and he got drunk after like 2 beers.
Yeah, it's true. But then we switched to Left 4 Dead 2,
Mm-hmm.
and where Tim heroically left us all to our deaths at the end and hopped on the helicopter without us.
He gets so mad in those games, man. He's such a time bomb. He's he gets jumped on by pounced on by this like super zombie called a hunter, right? For those of you who aren't familiar with that game, and it leaps on him and starts tearing him up. And I swear to God, I dumped 3 clips into that thing. I was like, I'm just shooting it, and it must have been hitting a tree or something in front of it. I don't know what it was, but I'm usually pretty good about shooting those off. And I hear everyone else shooting too, so I'm assuming they're also shooting at it.
Yeah. I was at a different angle shooting the same zombie, and I'm like, I'm trying.
And he's just over there, like, and he'll just sit there and transmit on his mic, and he's like, hi, hello, hi, I'm dying. And I'm like, settle down, dude. It's just the game. Like,
we're trying.
So, yeah, and then that's not so bad because I get frustrated. If I get smoked or something, you get grabbed and kind of held for a while, and you're just like, I'm slowly leeching my life away. This sucks. I get a little frustrated, but I don't get a weird conspiracy theory right afterwards, like, oh, they just let me die on purpose or something. The weirdest thing because he always gets upset afterwards. He's like, look, I could save you. I saved you, no problem, or something, And I'm like, yeah, what do you think we were doing? Like, we all set down our hands and just kind of were like, this is an interesting turn of events.
It might be that you're just better at this than we are.
Yeah. There's 1,000 interpretations, but the one that you definitely shouldn't make is that we were just like, it's not important. It's not important. Let him die.
So we get to the very end, and you get smoked. They grab you with the tongue, and they're dragging you away. So I stop, pull the sniper rifle, and I'm shooting at that thing, and then I get pounced on while I'm shooting at it. But I save you, but you're too late. You're like on the ground now, dying too. So
yeah.
We're both dying. JT and Tim are still up, and JT's like, I'm going back for them because it's JT. And Tim's like, yeah, me too. But he just stays by the helicopter, and JT jumps down there.
I see a little character just crawling up the side like he's, climbing the ladder. I'm like, he is most certainly not coming down.
We all died.
Yeah, except Tim. He made it.
Yeah, he made it. And then we switched to a game called Forced, which you bought us all on. It was like sale or something. You had like a 4-pack.
Oh, Forced? Yeah.
And how did that go?
Okay, either we didn't get to where it was fun because we didn't play that long, or it's just not fucking fun. I don't know why that thing got such good reviews. That is not a fun game. It's weird. It's like a top-down, almost like old-school Gauntlet, but without the shooting. You have to actually walk up and melee things, and the weapons are dumb. It's weird.
Yeah, and I was not invested from the beginning. It was like, you are 4 identical, muscular, bald, naked men in loincloths. Go fight.
Yeah, and it was like, I think there was a plot, but I don't know what it was. So it's just this guy talking with horrible voice acting. He's like, you're falling into the realm of whatever it was. And he's like, maybe you should get up. And I'm like, wow, this guy sounds like he's on benzodiazepines.
I'm just phoning it in right now.
It sounds ruddy mysterious. It sounds like he had an idea in his head, and he's just the worst voice actor ever, because it was the worst. It was awesome. And then the evil guy was like so overly evil. He's like, I can't wait to see you all die. And then he walks away, and I'm like, why didn't you just kill us then?
So, but you also played some Here's the Storm with JT.
Yeah, that was a blast. I played most of the day with that before we got to nighttime. That's a great game. It's just fun. You love it.
And then there's a game that you and I both bought on sale. It's 33% off, and we couldn't resist. It's gotten great reviews, so we had to check it out. And we almost didn't have a podcast today because we were just engrossed in it.
Yes. Middle-earth Lords. No, Shadows of Mordor.
Yes.
That game, man. Holy cow. That game.
So, how would you rate it on difficulty?
1. Okay, hold on. You can die. So
it's really hard, but you can.
Well, I mean, those Caragors, they've got these big old, those things that those goblins wore. They're kind of like wargs.
Yeah. Those
Big
things
evil.
and the trolls, they can kill you pretty easily. But everything else, like the Uruk, nah, you're fine.
Yeah, you. I mean, if you get hit like 4 times, you'll die, but you just never get hit.
Yeah, and there are herbs all over the place, and each one refills your life to full.
Yeah.
So if you do get hit, let's say you're surrounded by 70 Uruk-hai and you're at no health, you just run away. They can't catch you, and you pick up an herb and you come back.
So if it's so easy, why is it so fun?
It's so fun.
It is. It's like it's made by the same people who made Batman, so it's a lot like that. Like you've got a
Yeah.
little map, you got little objectives that pop up, and they're all time sensitive. That's what's crazy. There'll be a power struggle in the lines of orcs, right? And so there's these 2 orc captains, and one's trying to like move up the ranks, and they literally have ranks. So you take out the first ones, and they're the easiest. But occasionally, have power struggles and fight, and one of them will win and become more powerful. And or you can go intervene on those right in between. It's awesome. So you're like, hey, I'll take that guy out if you'll give me information on him or whatever. It's so fun. Oh my gosh.
And they have this thing called the rival system where if an orc kills you, you'll come back to life because you're a weird wraith monster anyway, so you're kind of immortal. But that guy gets promoted, and so he can be this guy. He can be like the Joker to your Batman, where he keeps beating you, and you keep coming back, and he keeps beating you, and eventually you kill him, and it's so satisfying because you're like, finally, who's laughing now?
Well, that happened to me when one orc ran away from me. It was they're all randomly generated, their personalities and weaknesses and strengths. And this one was the drinker. He was a what was he called? The drunk or something. You know, they all have their name, and then they've got this title that's randomly generated. It's like a personality trait. And his was it was the drunk. And it was like Uruk, the drunk. And I was like, oh, okay. So I get to him and I start fighting him, and he's like got a ton of hit points, and he's like a sloppy fighter, but he's powerful. And so and you can't dodge his attacks or you can't counter him because they're too powerful. So I'm hopping around, but all these orcs come whenever he did that because we were in the middle of this thing. They rang an alarm, so I'm trying to kill all the orcs first because trying to fight him with those was just crazy because he'd parry everything. You try to hit over it, so you'd have to jump over him and attack him. Anyway, he ends up kind of running away because I stab him really hard. He's like, no! And so he starts running, and I'm trying to run through these orcs to get him because I'm like, oh, you come back, you're mine. And but I couldn't get to him. I started getting hit, and I was like, God dang it! So I turned around and started fighting the orcs. And it counted it as a win, and because he turns around and like zooms in, he goes, I'll remember how to beat you next time, and then he keeps running. I was like, I stabbed you as hard as I could, and you ran away. So he became like this quote unquote rival of mine. I just killed him next time. I jumped on top of him and killed him.
Yeah, it's fun. And there's just like random like things. Like I get so ADD on that game where I'm stalking somebody, and then it's like there's an ancient toothpick nearby used by the old Numenorians, and I'll find it, and I'm like examining it, learning about its history, reading all the flavor text, and I'll just get so distracted.
The quest it pulls you off of, because like you were probably trying to avenge your parents on that quest or something, or your wife, and then you're like, wait, toothpick? Like for me, I'm walking around. Oh, it's got that Batman thing where you can terrify people. So like there'll be cages with these Korogors,
Aragorns or something.
Yeah, it's something. Basically wargs, and you can shoot the lock off it, and then these things get out and just start tearing up the Uruks. And so I'm like, oh, and then you could like shoot little pieces of like crumbling buildings, and they'll fall on to people and stuff. So you can lure people into traps. You can shoot. Did you get that upgrade where you can shoot into the fires and they explode?
Yeah.
It's so awesome. These orcs were sitting around like roasting this rat, and they're like, oh, I can't wait for the Grave Walker, which is apparently who you are, to come in here. I'll put him over this spit and roast him good. And they're like, and I was like, yes. And then like from the shadows and blasted it, and they just went flying. It
brings out your inner sicko. It's just like those Batman games where you really just you get the thrill of terrifying something and then hunting it down and killing it.
Yeah, because if you kill like a captain right in the middle of a bunch of orcs, there's a chance they'll all flee. And there's also a terror mechanic you can use. Like there's like those flies, like corpse flies and things. But if you terrify them, they start running, they scatter, and then that's when I realized how sick I was. I was like, this is gross, because I was like, where are you going? And I had like it slows down time to shoot my arrow in 3 of their heads, and the last one's running. And I'm like, and he's so far away, I could have just let him go, but I'm like gleefully holding down the sprint button, and you run just a little faster than them.
Yeah,
so
it's just enough faster to be satisfying, where the chase is still long, but then they're looking over their shoulders like to see how far away you are, and they're like, oh god, and you're like, yeah, I'm coming closer.
And they're like yelling and stuff. They're like, help! And then they keep looking back, like, and running as fast as they can. They run all sloppy, and I'm just like, oh yes! And then I tackle them because there's the tackle button just to spear them, like football spear them. And then I was like, you get it! And you kill them. It's
Now I have a
hilarious.
question psychologically, Jeremiah. When we watched the trailer last week to Hatred, we felt sick to our stomachs. But when we murdered thousands of orcs as they fled in terror and we stabbed knives through their faces, I felt nothing but glee. What's going on with that?
Yeah, it's exactly the context, right? Because we have that biological urge to like hunt things down, right? And like hunting itself is fun. But if you find the context of like if you're shooting like a deer or something, but then right before you shoot, well, you see this in like movies all the time. Right before you shoot him, a little baby comes and like starts, drinking milk off the mother or whatever. If you were gonna shoot a doe, then it changes the context, and you're like, oh, I can't. I feel horrible. So like that's the same thing here. Everything in Mordor. This is what's great. They all have biologies, right? Because biologies.
Biographies.
Wow, thank you. Biographies, yeah. Biographies, and of course you can go to a menu and read all this crap because J.R. Tolkien was like he was a nut for this. So everything has this long description, and everything deserves to die. That's the best thing. 'Cause
Yeah,
it's like
everything in
spiders.
Mordor is horrible. Like the rats, the birds, the bats, the flies.
Yeah. So I know I shot. It was like shoot that spider there, and I was like, I don't want to shoot that spider. It's not doing anything. And I'm a ranger. I like nature. But then I was like, it pops up a little exclamation mark. It's like, oh, go check this out in the appendix. And I was like, okay. And I looked at it, and it was like, these spiders are from what's that girl's name? Lob or something?
Shelob,
The
the spider queen.
Shelob. Yeah, and they're actually like agents of hers, and they're spying on the men. And there's a bunch of like humans that are enslaved, and she's keeping tabs on them, trying to find the weak ones so she can pick them off. And I was like, oh, then fuck these spiders. And then another one was like, shoot those flying things. I was like, oh, they look pretty. What are they, like dragons? And it was like, no, they're evil. What were those things?
They were like the cousins of the Nazgul, like the smaller relatives of them, and they're like the eyes and ears of Sauron, and they spy upon the workings of men.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, well, fuck those things too. Everything is just
Yeah,
it's
and
all deserves to die.
orcs they breed in pits, right? They come fully formed out of the mud, and so there's no women and children. There's no moral quandaries about like, oh no, if I kill this guy, then his kids are gonna starve. It's just each one of those is a small like embodiment of evil that you feel no guilt for slaughtering, and it's fantasy because as a gamer, I'm able to tell the difference between killing an orc and shooting a woman in the face.
Yeah, exactly. It is obviously not that. It's brilliant. These guys are great at this because they did that with Batman too. Like Arkham breaks out into the street, so everyone you meet is an asshole, right?
Yeah,
So
and when
you
you're
never feel
flying on them,
bad.
they're talking about like all the fun they had, like raping and pillaging through Gotham. And you're like, oh, you guys are getting it.
Oh, you're getting it hard. Yeah, it's just like these guys. They do the same things. They're always talking whenever you get near them, and they say just the worst stuff.
Yeah, we're
So,
gonna
like,
go and kill all the elves and eat their babies. You're like, no, you're not. You're not gonna
not
eat the elf baby.
today.
Not
I'm gonna
today.
shoot this arrow in your head and then fight 80 of you at once. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's not difficult at all, but it's so much fun.
Yeah, they're like, I like the way they. I walked up on one to this fort, the stronghold, and as I'm creeping along like the old decrepit, tops of it, feeling like Batman basically. I'm like, oh, I'm stalking my prey, and I will move through unseen, and then totally get seen and kill everyone, just like Batman. And as I was doing that, one of them was like, he's just like, I like the way humans scream when you grab them by your hair and throw them about, and I was like, oh, like it just makes you. It lets you like be an absolute idiot without it's like boxing with gloves on basically. It lets you like do the aggressive game without ever having to get anyone hurt. It's just awesome.
And note too that the Cockney accent remains the accent of people who are subhuman. Like it's such a vilified accent. There's never a Cockney hero, like, all right, we're gonna fight the bad guys now. Follow me.
Oh no, yes, there are John and Carl. Remember our campaign?
John and Carl from your campaign, but they were mostly just there as comic relief.
Those guys are awesome, man. Anytime John and Carl, these like recurring like, just made them up one time. They were town guardsmen, and I was like, yeah, they're just like these regular guardsmen. I don't remember how you came in on this. I think I was like,
there were two of them, so I just started vocalizing one of them, even though I wasn't the DM.
yeah, because it didn't matter. They don't actually change anything. But then they became so beloved. They're in all my campaigns now, and they're just obnoxious. They're just obnoxious. Oh my god, it's awesome. Like one time they were just standing there at a gate, and I was like, and at the gate, you see, Johnny Carl, hello, and they're like,
what have we here? Couple of heroes out for adventure.
and everybody starts rolling their eyes because they know as soon as it starts, it's just gonna be a lot of trolling. So like I was like. Like one time, John and Carl get in a fight, and he's like, you're just a scum of the earth. And then I go, I hurt my feelings. Take that back, you all right? I do. And then like a recurring thing where we say the most the horriblest things, like oh, take one of your children, put him on a spit, and eat him alive. And you're like,
Well, that's
oh,
terrible. You take that back.
all right, I do.
It's just like the argument ends.
Yeah, that's just it. Oh man! And then like so they waylaid the adventurers for like 10 minutes, and the adventurers were trying to get to the gates, to climb on top of them and spy on these people. And then it turns out that they're like, so after all this talking, did we earn our way onto the top? And they're like, oh yeah, those aren't guarded. Go ahead. Anyway, they gotta just walk past, and they weren't even standing in the way. In other words, it was just hilarious.
It's good times. So if you
Anyway,
enjoy Assassin's Creed or any of the Batman Arkham games, and if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, this is definitely the game for you.
Yeah, and maybe even if you're not, just because it's just got behavioral principles like time clocks and things. Man, like so a power struggle will happen for just a minute or a few minutes, and so you gotta like decide if you want to do it. So it always pulls you off your mission. Like David and I have been playing this quite a lot. And how much of the story have you gotten done?
We've done like the first maybe 2 missions.
Yeah. And everything else is just
like you cannot progress in the skill tree until you like do more of the main missions, and so we've unlocked everything on that top tier, and we're just building up all those experience points that we can't spend right now.
Yeah, hundreds of points and the elven currency stuff. It's hilarious, but whatever. I've killed millions of orcs, and I've doing 2 missions.
Yeah,
so
it's great.
You'll love it.
So definitely check it out. It was on sale briefly for 33% off. And so we will keep posting any more sales that we see on that game because it's so much fun.
Yeah, definitely. So what else have you been playing? You played with your brothers. Some games
yeah,
probably,
so
right?
my brother came in, and he brought with him some of the Amazon packages I accidentally shipped to Arkansas. So I was able to play Disney Infinity. I've been collecting the figures as rewards for my running. Every 12 miles I get to buy a figurine. But now I've actually gotten to use them in actions. We play a little co-op Avengers together. He was Tony Stark, I was Iron Man, or no, he was Tony Stark, I was Thor. And it's I don't know if the game itself is fun or just collecting the figures is fun, because the game itself is it's for kids, right? Like it's got kind of a Lego Marvels kind of mechanic where it's pretty simple to combat and such.
Okay, yeah.
Kind of an open world, just exploring New York and fighting things, and not that complex. But to me, the real fun is just like every week I get to buy a new figure and put it on my mantle. So I don't know if I can recommend it as a game so much as a motivational tool for exercising.
I just hit my goal of running 50 miles in a week or a month. A month.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah.
For October?
Yeah. So for October, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I do it by week because I like more common reinforcers, more frequent.
Mm-hmm.
So I do 12 miles a week. I get to buy something.
Man, yeah, you have to. I don't know. Yeah. Before you can lean it out, you gotta like reward yourself like a lot. But I just don't have a regular running schedule. I should get one. There's days where I just absolutely cannot run probably unless I woke up crazy early.
Do you have a reward schedule, or you just do it because you like to do it?
Yeah, okay, so the first parts of running suck. Up to like 4 miles, basically, running is always a chore, and it's something you have to do. But after a while, you just like it. I like the way I feel when I run. I like the way I feel after I run. So, I think that happens I don't know, like when you can basically run like 3 miles and it feels like you didn't really work at all. It happens around then because you get runner's high and all that other fun stuff.
Yeah.
So it's kind of reinforcing by itself now.
I'm not there yet. After 3 miles, I feel like I've worked out.
Yeah, for me, that's how it was because I wasn't consistent running. That's how it was for years. And then in the Army, I noticed when I had to run all the time that I started enjoying it. And I was like, oh, so there's something to this. So it's weird. But some people never liked it. They were they weren't very lean, in the Army. They were a little fatter. And they would always bitch when run days came. They were like, oh, God, run day, ugh. But I liked them.
We also play a lot of Hyrule Warriors co-op. It's pretty fun because the way they have it set up. So my brother, first of all, he comes in and my TV is super ghetto. Like it's a nice TV, but the way I set it up, it was just on a empty box, like my computer box. It was just sitting on that. And he's just like, "What is this?" I'm like, "I don't know, man. Just I have a box, I have a TV. I put the TV on the box." And he's like, "Hold on." And he goes while I'm at work. I come home. He's like gone to the store. He set everything up, and he installs my TV to hang from the wall. apparently flat screens can hang from walls now. That's a new thing,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
So he's got it hanging from the wall. He's got like a little shelf underneath for my Wii, my Wii U, and my all my peripheries are down there, and he's got like chairs set up. It's like a regular gaming setup now, and I'm like, wow, this is nice. So we played a lot of Hyrule Warriors, and so he's playing on the big screen, and I'm playing on instead of doing a split screen, they give you the little the Wii U pad has that little small screen built into it.
Yeah.
So I'm playing off of that, and he's playing off of the big screen. But for the first time in my life, I've been at work all day. He's been sleeping all day. So for the first time ever, like I'm tired and he's not.
Wow.
So he's fighting, and he's Link and I'm Zelda, and we're fighting Wizro on this big map, and I'll just find myself like kind of nodding off where I'm just running around in circles, like where you're just kind of got your thumb on the joystick and you're just doing these laps around the map. So nothing's like attacking you, but you're not helping at all. And then like I'll just stop running every so often, and I'll be like, oh, I should go fight the boss. My gamer instinct is kicking, and I'm like, I better go fight the boss. I'm half asleep, like stumbling towards it, and I start attacking it, and I just doze off again. I'm just standing there, and Joseph's like, are you okay? Because he's in a different part of the map. He can't see what's happening to me, and he's like, what's going on? And it's like, you are defeated. He's like, wait, how did we lose? And I'm like, what? Oh, sorry, man, I fell asleep. And it was a weird experience for me. I've never been the one of us that's been too tired to play games.
Wow, yeah. We used to stay up forever and play games back in the day.
Yeah, but it was fun. We had a lot of fun doing that. And I also did a D&D game again, 5th edition, with my friends, with my cousins and sisters and whatnot. So we do like twice a month. We do like an online D&D game, and I think we're getting better at it. It was a pretty interesting adventure. They had to escape from an armed camp, and half of their party had been like captured, and they were hanging up from these stakes, and the other half was trying to like figure out how to get them free. And so you have one half working on like freeing themselves from their bonds and coming up with a plan, and you have the other half like starting fires in the camp to make distractions. It was pretty cool. They ended up escaping and getting to level 3, so I think they're starting to get the hang of it.
Huh. Cool.
And I think with 5th edition D&D, like the less combat, the better, the more fun everyone has. In 4th edition, like combat was exciting. You're like, yeah, combat time! Get out the minis, get out the maps. Let's get some tactics. It was like a Final Fantasy Tactics level.
Yeah, yeah.
5th edition, you have more fun when combat doesn't actually happen. Actually, hand wave combat when they got captured because they're like, So basically, one of the guys had publicly dueled their chief in front of the whole army at one point, and then tried to infiltrate the camp. And someone was like, oh, I think I know you. You look familiar. And then finally they put it together. That was the guy. So they got, and I'm like, okay. They tell you to surrender. Like, we're fighting. I'm like, okay. Well, there's 180 of them, and there's 3 of you. So I'm gonna skip combat and say you got captured. And they're like, yeah, we're fine with that. Like nobody really wanted to fight that out.
Wow.
I think less combat the better for 5th edition.
Wow, that's that's sad, but I wonder if there's some way to like mix those two somehow. But
yeah, because I remember really liking combat in 4E. Like just having a lot of fun with it. Remember we played that one dungeon run where there was no story. We just had 3 battles and it was over.
Well, we made our story. Yeah. Somehow we made that story. It was hilarious.
We made a story.
Like the warlord, the jerk warlord, and the
rub some dirt in it warlord.
Yeah, and you were like that blade singer type thing. That was a cool mechanic.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm still not sold on 5th edition. I really want to because they're pushing it so hard and everyone's playing, and I've invested a lot of money in it, but so far it just makes me nostalgic for 4E.
Oh well. Well, I mean maybe someday. Well, maybe we can just make our own by like skeleton boning out pieces or something. But I miss good old D&D after playing all of Star Wars.
Yeah, it'd be nice to go back to some sword and sorcery.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, it's been a little bit, so I guess we can get into the in-depth analysis. All right. This is the in-depth analysis where we talk about what the episode is about. It's about sidekicks and player twos.
Yeah, sidekicks and player twos. This is a topic that's been on our list for a while now. We've never gotten into it, but first of all, the word sidekick comes from sidekicker, which came out of the 1850s term side partner.
What? Sidekicker? Side partner?
Yeah, so like side partner turned into sidekicker turned into sidekick. It's just a weird etymology.
That is weird. I always kind of wondered what that meant. Huh. Sidekick. Oh well.
Yeah.
But basically they're just like little versions of you. That's a sidekick.
Yeah, well they serve a lot of functions. Like so for the original sidekick, the oldest one we know about comes from Did you read this? The Epic of Gilgamesh.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so remember Enkidu, right? Like
Yeah,
the Gilgamesh's sidekick, basically like this wild man who's uncorrupted by society.
I think that was rad.
Yeah, so Enkidu is the first one we know about, and then there's a lot of famous ones throughout literature. You have Sancho Panza from Don Quixote. You have Dr. Watson, who's a very commonly referred to sidekick because
Yeah.
played by a freaking Bilbo Baggins. Um,
Yep.
But yeah, they serve different roles in the narrative. And so I was thinking about what kind of roles they do, and then what kind of video game examples can we think of that match these kinds of sidekicks. So the first sidekick I thought of was kind of Robin to Batman, where he's a counterpoint to the hero. So Batman is dark and brooding, and Robin is gaudy with like bright yellow, and he's wearing like red short shorts and green boots.
Right.
So it's kind of like a juxtaposition kind of sidekick where he's everything the hero is and kind of fills in where the hero is lacking and is lacking where the hero is strong.
Yeah, yeah, that's the first one that comes to mind, for example, as like a foil sort of to the main character to
Right.
show like their attributes. So I guess, man, a video game version of that probably like. So they're quite the opposite. Man, I don't know.
See, I was thinking like Diddy Kong. He's like short and agile to Donkey Kong's brute strength in Donkey Kong
Yeah.
Country. And also Luigi. Luigi's always portrayed as like the tall, lanky to the short and stout Mario. He's green to the red, and he's cowardly to Mario's bravery.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a nice juxtaposition. Basically, he makes Mario look more heroic, look more courageous by being there.
That seems to be that's the first one that comes to mind. Like this kind of sidekick to me is this idea that like the stories about the main person and the sidekick is just this thing that like
To
serves
almost
to be
highlight
caught-
the strengths of the hero.
Yeah. It's almost like
Contrast.
the damsel in distress type thing where it's like they serve a purpose and it's basically just as to highlight the point of the main character.
Right, and that makes sense that this would be the one you think of first because the oldest sidekick we know about, Enkidu, was basically that to Gilgamesh. Enkidu was a wild, hairy beast man who eschewed women and lust and all those things, the corrupting influences of society, and Gilgamesh was all about that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Kido was rad though. He was always loyal. So I guess they have to pretty much just be loyal.
Yeah, and that was the other thing is sometimes sidekicks have to die to motivate the hero, like Jason Todd for Batman.
Yeah, Jesus.
Or
Damn,
Enkidu. Yeah.
that was gross.
So the next role sidekicks sometimes play is the narrative aid or exposition. In other words, they're the people who they know what's going on and they say things not so much for the hero's benefit all the time, but for the reader's benefit or the audience's benefit.
Oh, okay. So you mean the ones that like explain it along the way?
Right, like they tag along for the adventure and they help the hero, but they also do a lot of unnecessary exposition. So like they'll say something that maybe the hero would have known anyway, but it's for the audience's benefit.
Oh yeah, those happen a lot. That's oh well, like why am I drawing a blank? I don't know. And sometimes it's filled by a lot of different people, like coming in and saying these things. But if it's just one person, a lot of times it's like, I mean, like Assassin's Creed, maybe for example, Black Flag, the pirate, the little boy, quote unquote pirate.
Yeah.
He shows up a lot. And he talks about the world and like what's going on. He's explaining it, how the pirates,
Yeah, he's kind of your guide to the assassin's world,
Yeah.
or she, as it turns out.
Yeah. Spoiler.
Also, the most famous one I can think of is, "Hey, listen!"
Navi.
Yeah. Navi or Midna or Fee, like all the, Link always has a sidekick who's basically an exposition aid for the audience, for the player. Like showing you where the weak points are, telling you where to go.
Or in Metal Gear, it's the that one guy who's voice acted and he's in like a lot of different things. But the guy who calls you, I think it's Big Boss. The guy who calls you, he's like Snake, listen, I want to tell you about where you're at, or like one of the or your
Right.
your other aide, the girl who calls, and I can't remember her name either, but she's like those are called snakes, and snakes are dangerous, and you're like, well, no shit, and it's like, but you can eat snakes. I'm like, of course you can, because this is a survival Metal Gear. And
Yeah, and that brings up the idea of the team of sidekicks. Sometimes you'll, instead of one sidekick, you'll have a sidekick where it's broken up into a bunch of people who's like your support team.
yeah,
So like, think about the TV show 24, right? Like everyone at CTU is like Jack's kind of sidekick. They're providing
yeah,
support, or anyone in those FBI dramas, like they've always got their team of people who are providing support. Or in gaming, you have Slippy and Falco and Peppy who are doing their little support roles while you're
yeah.
the main hero.
Yeah, and they all have different like aspects of themselves as well.
Yeah,
They tend to be pretty one-dimensional if they're a team of them.
right.
But
Yeah, they tend to take all the aspects of a sidekick and breaks them up into individual specialized roles.
yeah, yeah. Which is a funny thing about this whole like tropes and video game thing, and that I have a problem with whenever they talk about, like, oh, women right here are only used for their one dimension and they're not interesting. I'm like, yeah, that happens with everyone. It may happen more with women. That's probably true. But don't pretend like this is solely a misogyny thing. This is just writers
Don't
being lazy.
mistake bad writing for misogyny, because sometimes it's just bad writing.
Yeah, and I think the challenge with these narrative sidekicks is really just about making them not annoying. Because when does the audience want or an explanation, and when don't they?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Maybe if you can skip it or something.
Yeah, because Navi was famous for being annoying, right? Like the "Hey, listen!" Or if you're playing too long, she'll tell you to stop playing. Or if you're doing a side quest like you're looking for a fish, she's like, "Hey, we should go to the Temple of Fire." You're like, "Shut up, Navi! I know. I'm fishing right now."
Oh yeah. How about this? Don't have a crazy annoying voice. Like, cause in Shadows of Mordor, you got that wraith that's with you, and he's awesome. Every time he starts talking, I'm like, oh, I want to listen, and because it does stop the combat or whatever when he talks most of the time, and that bugged me about Navi, because I'd be like, oh look, a little dude, he's shooting little nuts at me, I'm gonna go get him. So I start running towards him, and she's like, hey, you forgot to go to the water temple. I'm like, I know, I'm gonna do it later. Shut up. And this guy will do that, and I don't mind, because he sounds so cool. He's like, hey, listen, I've got something awesome to say, and I'm like, oh man, you sound cool.
Yeah, and this guy, he serves that exposition role, the Wraith, but also because he's kind of in the dark too, he doesn't know a lot either. He kind of fills this other role of sidekicks I'm going to bring up called they bring aid or skills that the hero doesn't have. So the Wraith is a good example of that, right? He can bring all that Wraith stuff to the table.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking of whenever I was thinking of sidekicks, I only thought of two roles, and I thought one would be like narrative, and one would be mechanical. Like narrative would be anything that makes the story cooler, and doesn't absolutely serve like a mechanical purpose so much. So that would be like Oracle for Batman, Barbara Gordon. She's really cool, and she comes up with these cool things, like when I'm running around the city killing people, or not killing, punching people really hard, almost killing them, or giving them head trauma but not death. For some reason, that's better. But whenever I'm doing that, she'll tell me cool stuff, like oh, this is the section where the Joker used to live, or whatever. You can find his stuff over here. I'm like, oh, that's cool. So I like that. And then there seem to be like mechanical ones, and I was thinking about like mechanical sidekicks that help you in some way. And I was thinking about the Wraith for that, because really he lets you do these like special abilities and moves, and he lets you be sneaky and stuff.
Or Navi, she lets you Z-target bad guys. So sometimes they fill both.
Yeah, I guess that would be like this then. That's kind of like what I was calling mechanical.
Yeah. Aid or skills the hero doesn't have. So when I thought of that, I was thinking of characters like Rush, Mega Man's dog. He'll have like there'll be something you can't reach with Mega Man, so Rush will jump on. You can springboard off his back, or fly on him or whatever. And also Tails. Tails being Sonic's sidekick, Miles Tails Prowers.
Oh yeah.
He was he could fly, and in later games he could actually pick Sonic up and take him to places Sonic couldn't reach by himself.
Yeah, and later you could play that guy. Like I figured that out. I had that game for years before I realized you could play. A player two could just pick it up and play him.
Yeah.
You could save him, catch him and then pull him up somewhere. That was so fun. I was thinking about war games. Like there's a lot of war games that have this. Like you've got your demolitions guy, or like a Star Wars Commando.
Yeah, where you've got your team leader who's probably like the hero of the story, and then you have like three sidekicks who are specialized with skills he doesn't have.
Mm-hmm. You got the sniper, you got the demolitionist guy, and then you got who's the third one?
Was it the hacker, like the engineer?
Oh, I think so. Yeah. But basically they're not really that interesting. They had a cool personality actually. That thing was well written, but they're not that interesting until their role comes up, and then they help the hero or the team get somewhere they need to be. That's what I was thinking about with mechanical and aid type thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So they have like special skills, or like Watson to Sherlock Holmes. Like Sherlock Holmes has got all the skills except the people skills, and Watson's good at people skills, and he's got the medical degree for that. He can do autopsies and stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then the next category, the next function sidekicks can sometimes play is the comic relief.
Yeah. Okay.
And 80s cartoons were horrible about this because they always thought everything needed a comic relief sidekick. So you'd have like Snarf and just
Oh yeah.
all these annoying sidekicks that were supposed to be funny for the kids, but just came off as annoying.
Oh god, yeah.
But in gaming, go ahead.
Ghostbusters, Slimer.
Yeah, Slimer from Ghostbusters, exactly.
The cartoon, yeah, he's meant to be hilarious, and he's always just doing something stupid. It's like the wild card from. Did you ever see? Do you watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
Right.
He's like, I'm the wild card. Whoa! Did you cut the brakes to the car? Yeah, I'm the wild card. You never know what I'm gonna do.
I'm like, that's not a punishment. We don't want that.
They get a wreck. Yeah, man, it's hilarious.
So comic relief in video games, I think the best sidekick for that would have to be Claptrap.
Yeah. Yeah, and then part 2 where he gets like rewired and he thinks you're a minion. Oh, follow me, minion.
Right.
Hilarious.
Yeah. And he actually becomes a playable character later because oftentimes sidekicks are also the player twos, which is why those overlap sometimes. But other video game comic relief sidekicks, I was thinking the Potato from Portal 2. And
Yeah.
also Wheatley.
Wheatley, of course, yeah. Has to be Wheatley for that. He's just like bumbling around, but he's comic relief done really well. He's hilarious.
Yeah, there's places where comic relief doesn't work; it falls flat. But those are some good examples. Can you think of any others?
Yeah, actually, I like the like Alistair is comic relief in Dragon Age. I think he's funny, but the best thing about that is I love when the narrative takes that to the place where shit gets real and then they get real. That's awesome. Like whenever they're the Joker and like whenever they get serious. That, dude, I need to like shit is serious. It's
a good storytelling. It's a good storytelling tool to really show you that things have gotten bad when the comic relief stops making jokes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, do they have any category for like? I was thinking about like just like voiceovers, like or voices that just like a narrator almost, like in Bastion, or like where it's kind of like this connection between. It's the same thing. It's telling you about the audience, or it's telling you about yourself.
Yeah, it's less of a sidekick because he doesn't actually interact with the hero. He's more interacting with the audience. It'd be more like the Greek chorus in Greek plays where they're there for the audience's benefit to tell more of the story, but they don't actually interact with the people on the stage.
Okay, yeah, because that's what that feels like. This in that game, Bastion, because they're telling you about the whole story, tells you what's go back.
Bastion is a Greek. The narrator's a Greek chorus with a cool cowboy voice.
Yeah, that guy sounds awesome.
And then the last role I could think of for sidekicks is the audience proxy. Usually have these for when the hero is too unrelatable for the audience to really like understand. For example, again, Sherlock Holmes. He's such a disjointed genius, borderline sociopath that it's hard for us to really relate to him. So Watson's there to kind of give us our point of view character.
Huh. Yeah.
Another example would be in the Fire Emblem games. A lot of them will have a character that's the tactician, and that's you, and you're there. He or she is there interacting with the main heroes, who are like Ike or whoever the main character is in the story, and you're there as kind of like the audience stand-in, like as if you were having an adventure with them.
So that's kind of like in StarCraft, where you play a commander, a faceless commander, or like a Cerebrid, where
you're interacting with the hero, but you're not the hero.
Yeah, you're clicking around Jim Raynor, telling him where to go, or you're clicking around like, one of the hunter killers, or, yeah. Okay, wow.
So sidekicks kind of fill a lot of narrative roles. They have a lot of value from a storytelling position, and that translates into video games really well because a lot of the same demands that an audience has, a player is going to have too.
I feel like with psychology, and I don't know exactly what's going on there. I've never looked into that. That's why I thought this idea in general was really fascinating for a topic, because I can't think of anything, or I don't know any like empirical research on that, and I don't even know if that's been done. But I do know that like we've got that biological drive, males especially, competition and alpha
and beta male.
Yeah, yeah, like where we feel like, oh man, I want to be the coolest dude in the room, and it's deep seated, like almost all organisms show this that are sexual bimorphic,
Mm.
which just means the guys and the girls look different.
It gives you a
Um,
sexual advantage if you are the alpha.
yeah, and that's why most psychologists, not most, I think all psychologists now, have that theory that's why women go for like people with money or power, that kind of thing, because it kind of represents this. Um, yeah, like the most desirable male because they're the most desirable male. It's like tautological, but
Mm.
anyway. Um, or the or this like the high school effect. Okay, I'm calling it that because I'm making fun of social psychology. But have you noticed that like remember some of the guys that were really popular in high school, like and they got like all the ladies, like amongst the ladies they were popular,
Mm.
and now you're kind of looking back going, what the fuck? Like they were just not good looking, right? Like not anything particularly cool about them. They were just like this in the vacuum of high school. They became these I don't know figureheads, and then they started getting a lot of dates with women. You
Yeah,
know?
it's almost like because they were desired by women, they were desired by women kind of tautology.
Yeah, yeah. I only thought about this because my wife was talking about that a while back. She's like, "Oh man, there's this guy. I know this guy who was like really hot crap in college, and she had him on in high school, and she had him on her Facebook, and I looked at him and I was like, good, that guy. She's like, yeah, I don't know what the hell we were thinking, and I was like, yeah, we had those too. That's weird. And I don't know if it happened with girls. Did it? I don't know. Maybe it did, but it just doesn't seem to be that that's the case. That biologically, at least from what I know of biology, is in the same organisms that it doesn't really happen with men so much. Men are more about this, beauty thing, this
Mm.
somewhat objective beauty. Um, but I think that in these games, the sidekicks serve that purpose to remind you that you're this, I don't know, you're at the top of the social hierarchy. I don't like saying alpha male because I just found out that like a bunch of these pickup artist douchebags like use that word alpha male all the time,
Mm.
and that really bothers me. So I try not to say it anymore. But
But it's true, the sidekick kind of serves the role of like making the hero feel cooler or look cooler. Like
yeah,
again, just kind of providing a point of contrast.
yeah. Oh, actually, that's something that I did horribly in D&D for a while. I would think of a character, and since I'm the DM, I have full control over what happens to them, and
Mm.
they became really cool. So like I would have these sidekicks that kind of overtook the main story, and
Right,
or were
where
too
the
cool.
non-player characters end up being cooler than the heroes.
Yeah, and that's not fun. Like I have had that happen in games where I'm like, why can't I just be that guy? Like that guy's awesome. He's got everything figured out.
Yeah, remember Guild Wars 2? Did you ever play the story, like the main story of it, like the quests?
Yeah, some of them. I never
So
finished it.
the problem with Guild Wars 2 is the main hero was like this weird plant person. He was like a necromancer plant man, and all of your quests were just like helping him along. And then like in the cinematic scenes, it's like, oh, thank you, plant man, and also this other person who helped you. You guys really saved the day, and I felt like you were the sidekick the whole time
Yeah,
with that guy, and it just
yeah,
was kind of satisfying.
that's a great idea. That hits it right on the head because sometimes games kind of do that, but that one was explicitly shitty. I was like, can I go home? Because no one cares if I'm here. I'm not doing any difference. This guy's like Plant Man. He's super awesome.
And there's a third there's a not third, but there's another category of sidekicks where it's almost the comedy comes from the sidekicks actually way more competent than the hero. So remember Inspector Gadget. Think of Brain and Penny compared to Inspector Gadget. Like they were his sidekicks, but they were way better at everything than he was. Like he,
Yeah.
he was succeeding because of their help. Or you remember the old Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century with Daffy Duck and Porky Pig?
Yeah. Uh huh.
So like that again, Porky Pig was like the way more competent of the two. Daffy Duck sucked at everything, and Porky would like save his bacon, if you pardon the pun.
Yeah.
So we sometimes see that happen in video games too, where you'll have the character that you think is going to be the sidekick, but turns out to be you're the sidekick and they're actually the hero.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's always interesting to me. Is like the idea where or the parts where like it feels like you're playing the sidekick and not in a shitty way. They managed to make it fun, like Last of Us, for example. Nothing matters if anything happens to Joel at all. It
mm,
doesn't matter. If you die, so what? It's Ellie that's the important person. So Yeah, and she kind of makes all the decisions. You tell her to do something, and half the time she doesn't do it. She does her own thing, and you end up following her more than half the time.
Yeah,
I think
it's
every
interesting with
time.
The Last of Us because when you talk about agency and decisions, because that's what I use as my rubric to see who the protagonist is, like who is making decisions and who are we seeing the story through their lives, and it kind of goes back and forth because you'll have some Ellie stuff, you'll have some Joel stuff, but at the end, like the big decision, Joel makes that while Ellie's unconscious.
Yeah, I mean, but there's that kind of argument of like, I mean, I don't want to spoil it. Well, it's been out for a long time. I won't say anything particular, but does she believe it? There's
Right.
because that was a big question that a lot of people were throwing around on the internet was,
Right,
you
and
know,
that's kind of her point of agency is that does she choose to go along with the lie or not?
right, yeah. It's
That's an
interesting.
interesting one. It really blurs the lines between sidekick and hero in that game. Another one, Bioshock Infinite, does the same thing.
Bioshock game. Oh yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, where you're the the almost random. You never even see your own face. The guy.
Yeah, it's really her story.
Yeah, I can't even remember his name. What is his name?
Joel? No. Sorry, that was the other character. Um,
Troy Baker. No, that's
yeah,
the
Troy
voice actor.
Baker. Yeah,
Who did
you play as Troy Baker.
again? Yeah. I don't remember that guy's name, but I remember Elizabeth. Like the story's clearly about Elizabeth. It's a game where you're just helping her.
Yeah, so
Everything.
you go in thinking that she's going to be your sidekick because she's helping you fight, and she's opening portals and throwing you ammo, but really you're the less important character. She's the protagonist of that story.
Yeah, it's about the development of her becoming the
Booker DeWitt.
most fearful. Yeah, Booker DeWitt. That's it. She becomes like this super powerful thing that controls everything. And so yeah, it has nothing to do with you. It's just so weird because when you rescue her, she's very demurred because she's been caught in and caged and stuff. And then over time, she starts getting more and more confident. And pretty soon, yeah, she just openly defies you. And then pretty soon, it's not even about you. You're just like chasing an idea of her. It's
Right.
crazy. Yeah.
So that's kind of the sidekick from the literary angle. Like it's a very like the sidekick term is pretty new, right? It's a superhero kind of term that we've used, but the idea of a companion character is old. It's as old as Gilgamesh, and it shows up in video games all the time, like Banjo-Kazooie, right? You've got that bird in your backpack.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my question to you is, do we ever see this happen in real life? Like, do we have like the hero sidekick pairing? Does that come up very often, or is that more of a literary tool that doesn't happen a lot in real life?
No, yeah, that's what's crazy is I think it's okay. Something I found that's really awesome. My eyes have been open ever since I've started looking at things a little more like evolutionarily, I guess. But one of the things that okay, so this drove me crazy for like almost 10 years. I tried to figure this out. Monkeys, chimpanzees, who smile, when they like on the you watch like there was a toothbrush commercial at the time I learned this, and he used that as a reference. This guy he's a evolutionary scientist. He's a anthropologist, and yeah, what he said was, there was this commercial where this chimpanzee is sitting on a little stool, and he says, "Let's see those big, beautiful teeth." And then he goes, yeah, opens his teeth up, and he kind of smiles at the camera, and then he says that chimp over here got his great white teeth from Crest. I brush every day with Crest. And it shows him kind of brushing his teeth and then throwing out or whatever. And what he said was, he goes, so those chimps look funny, right? Like they're smiling at the camera. And he goes, actually, that's the same behavior that dogs do, like when they piss on the ground, like a submissive piss, or put back their ears and look down and don't look at your eyes. It's submission. Smile is. And that's what's so funny is that he said what's funny is that it's not really that case in humans. And I was like, is it not though? Maybe it is, because
Yeah, because it seems like when you're trying to make people laugh, it's because you want them to think highly of you. So it's almost a submissive movement, right? Like it's trying to, like, please approve of me.
yeah, and you see a lot of people who are somewhat socially anxious using humor as like a check-in to say, do you still like me? Are we still friends? But you also get people like who are just funny and they end up being the kind of the top dog too. But what's weird is I kept that in the back of my head for like 10 years about it, and then I started getting into psychology and the research. And as it turns out, there's this kind of if there's a paper, I don't want to mess this up, but because I don't know the exact methodology, I forget. This has been like 4 years since I read this. But what's it? Basically, it was like this is the general idea was that you could find out where someone was in a social hierarchy simply by measuring how many times they laughed or smiled, and the ones at the top do it the least. Which
Right.
is weird because you think they're happy, but as it turns out, like it's just like this. Like let's say you meet a celebrity. Let's say I meet,
Brad
Jennifer Love
Pitt.
Hewitt or something, or yeah, or whatever. I'd spend most of my time smiling at them, right, or laughing at the little
Mhm.
tiny things they say, right?
Right, and you always see like the entourage, like everyone else is laughing when the celebrity says something. It's not often the other way.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe smiling is a form of like, hey, you're ahead of me or whatever, because like I don't know, I think it still serves that function in some regard. Um, and I say that, but I still laugh and smile at people all the time because I think it's pleasant. I
Mm.
just keep that as in my back pocket as like, oh, that's interesting. But I think sidekicks in life is really like you get like did you ever see Mean Girls?
Yeah,
Yeah, the what was her name? The main bad girl.
yeah, the blonde.
Yeah,
What is it? Regina?
Regina, yeah. Who's the Regina? Yeah, like Regina surrounds herself with this entourage, like you said, or sometimes it's just one or two yes men, right? These people have, and I see it a lot. Like I remember getting picked on when I was younger. I think it was like sixth grade or so. Is that right?
Mm.
And anyway, there was these two guys, Matt Novi. I guess I shouldn't say their whole names, but Matt and his friend had dark hair, but Matt was clearly the shitbag. Like he was clearly the not just the shitbag, but the socially more inept, where he'd do most of the things that the other guy would say. And anyway, like they go around everywhere together, and it was like this like he clearly served the purpose of just being like, oh, I want to be near this other guy, right? I don't know. Like I think people do kind of do that, and then they sort of grab on to someone and hang around with them. I remember my sister had a friend like that. That you kind of keep them around because they make you feel good.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
and the
It,
other
it,
person like I don't know. It seems like some people are just more inclined to find somebody and like want to be their right hand man.
yeah.
Is that like a
Oh
thing?
yeah. Okay, and I don't know. This would be like IO psychology, so it's probably bad methodology. But they do say things like people are you can find what place someone. Well, actually, these tests are almost all just universally horrible. The ones that are like job placement shit, those are
Mm.
almost always horrible. I've never seen one with good validity or reliability. So right now I can't say all of them because I haven't seen them all, but I'm pretty sure they're just all bad. Um, and it has this idea that middle management is an idea of one of these people, someone who's not comfortable making big decisions, high risk, high reward type things. They're more like, well, I
It's
mean, like look at
the
Tim,
Dwight
like
Schrute.
yeah, the Dwight Schrutes, exactly. You're as good as you possibly can be because you've self-handicapped, which is that is a very interesting psychological thing where people self-handicap themselves, like they okay, so right, I used to do this, and I think you did too. I'm not sure, but when we were younger, we were really smart. We got by on our intellect, like in high school and college.
Mm.
But I wouldn't study for a test on principle. Like I would do it, and then I'd say, and even if I got like a low A, I would say like, oh well, I didn't even study. And I loved watching people say like, oh, and this is pretty shitty, but I did. I loved watching people say like, whoa, you didn't study, you're so smart, right? And
Right.
then I always thought,
But if
look,
you work hard and then fail, then the fact that you didn't study, or the fact that you failed, that's on you now. Like you can't attribute that to
exactly.
your self handicap.
Exactly, and people self-handicap all the time. Like they'll go into something and they're like, I'm probably gonna suck at this, and people call it modesty, but or this is a form of modesty, and I don't think it is. It's in fact, I know it's not. Psychologically, it protects you from a failure, the feeling of failure because you already kind of voiced it and you said it beforehand. But it also affects your behavior. People are less likely to go at it with both guns blazing whenever that happens. It's crazy.
Yeah, that reminds me of George Bernard Shaw. He said, "Liberty means responsibility. That's why most men dread it."
Huh? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's that Loki moment from the Avengers where it's like, "Is not this simpler? Is not this your natural state?" When he has everybody kneel, like we we give lip service to we like to make our own choices. We like liberty. We like freedom. But in reality, if we have somebody else making our decisions for us, then if it goes poorly, we can put that on them. Whereas if we have complete freedom and we fuck up, that's on us.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of. I remember in cognitive we learned something about. It was about the fact that like people, what it does to people to have someone else making decisions, basically giving them agency, and it does cause more stress whenever you have agency because you're the buck stops there, basically. You're the one who gets nailed. So the freedom is nice and we like it, but we also hate having the freedom as well. And I think that the thing about being the okay. So it's like when I was in the army. The army, everyone makes your decisions for you. It's
Mhm.
easy. Like you just go, or at least when you're a grunt, like like a low bar, like low and enlisted. The lower enlisted just get their schedules told to them. They tell here's exactly where you show up. Here's what you bring, like down to the like how many pairs of socks. Like it's literally everything is done for you. So you and it's cool because like if something bad happened, you bitch a little bit, to each other because that's what lower enlisted do. They bitch because their life sucks, and yeah, but then that's it. That's all you have to worry about. You don't have to think of a new way to fix it or like how to possibly make that work. And I'm sure you've gotten this a lot, where people wherever you're put in a leadership position, and you have to make some decision, and then people bitch at you, and then you just want to come back and say like, okay, but how would you do it, right?
Right.
Like it's that like they get caught in like this habit of just bitching and bitching and bitching, and then over time I'm like, like I show them my decision process. I'm like, here's why I have you call them, for example, 2 days before. How else would you serve that function? Because I get frustrated at them for that. I
That's
don't
like
know.
I think that's the appeal of the sidekick role. Like people sometimes gravitate to it because you get, first of all, if you find someone who's awesome and you just make your job to make them more awesome, then you can kind of ride on the coattails of his success or her success.
Right.
But if something goes wrong with them, then that's like they go down, but not you. You can detach and go to something else. Like it's not your failure.
Yeah, yeah. You get your finger on the eject button the whole time. That's crazy. Not crazy. That's very attractive. That's an attractive option because I don't know. I
Because everyone thinks like I want to be the leader, I want to be the hero, but it's a lot of people actually, if they're being honest, have more fun being the support unit. You know, like in our Star Wars game,
Mhm.
you were playing Rafe, the commando, and you were like the commander. Everyone called you commander. And other players like Tim would play like NC-17, who's like a droid who just looks to you. What are your orders, commander? His whole job is to facilitate you.
Mhm.
And so if things go wrong, that's on Rafe. And if things go well, awesome. And he got to help.
Right. And it's kind of like I did everything I could to help that. Like either way, whenever it's like well, it is self-handicapping actually. It's like in this happens a lot in team games. Oh my God, like playing League of or not League of Legends Heroes. I've seen this. Well, when things are going right, everything's great and everyone's kind and happy. But as soon as things go wrong, I don't mind taking the shit for it. Like I always say like yeah, that's probably my fault. I played Raynor for the first time in forever, and that was really stupid considering that we were on a 3-win streak, and that means we're gonna be playing a really good team.
Mm.
So and I take it, and then people were like, yeah, don't do that again. That's what co-op's for. And I was like, whoa, so quick to shit on me. I just shit on myself. Settle down. And I'm like, okay, but let me just look at the numbers here. I'm actually being overly modest, or I'm actually being overly self-deprecating. I've got the highest hero damage or whatever, so I'm clearly killing the team faster than anyone else. I was just mentioning the fact that I died a couple times stupidly, which I wouldn't have if I would have known this character better, and that's contributing to our loss. You know what I mean? Like you have to, I don't know, you have to have like a level of patience because you're gonna get a lot of shit. Like anytime something goes wrong, they're gonna look at you, which sucks. Like if you're making the calls, like in that Heroes game, you know, it's on you if you lose. And it's crazy because everyone like points the fingers. As soon as they start losing, they start pointing fingers.
Mm.
It's crazy. One did last night, and it was a character who was doing amazingly. She was clearly the best at everything. She was playing a female character. I don't know who it was in real life, but I'll just say she. She rocked it. She won in every single category minus healing, which she couldn't possibly. So she was clearly like carrying our team, and she
Right.
kind of bitched. And I was like, whenever things went wrong, and I was like, nah, makes sense. Yeah, we're kind of letting you down. You're way better than all of us.
Mm.
But then another time, literally the game two games before that, two people started yelling at me and JT, and they were the worst. One of them's a sniper. That's her whole job. It's Nova. Her whole job is to kill enemies or kill heroes, and she killed none. Like she was 0 and 8 or something like that, and had the lowest hero damage. And I was like, you are talking shit right now and saying it's our fault because I was in the middle of the map. What? You're the worst character. So like, I'm just showing that it's generalized across people. Despite your skill, you start as soon as the ship starts going down, everybody likes pointing fingers. It's
It
crazy.
kind of feels like there needs to be at least one hero and there needs to be a sidekick. Like it's almost like both fill an important role to have an optimal functioning pair.
Because we're communal creatures.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just looking at. It seems like if you have everyone trying to be the hero, it doesn't work, and if there's no leader, it doesn't work. But if you have one leader and a bunch of people like facilitating, it tends to be optimal. Like look at GamerGate, right? What's the big complaint with GamerGate?
what it started with?
No, just like its message is like everyone's like, no, we're not that. Yeah, we are that. We're like it's a boggled message of what are they even trying to do? Well, they're trying to get rid of integrity, but they're also this, they're also that. They don't have a leader. They don't have a. It's a
Yeah.
leader. It's a leaderless movement, and whenever you have a leaderless movement, anyone can kind of co-opt it into whatever they want.
Yeah, like that definitely happens. Like the a democracy doesn't work. Like where it's just everyone gets the same voice.
Mhm.
Eventually you got to have like a representation where, everyone's getting represented, but you just not oh man, I've had groups like that in college when I was in marketing. Everything was a group activity. And man, the leaderless ones were crazy. We were all disorganized. We went three different ways with our message. We changed gears like four times. It's crazy because everyone has an idea of how it looks in their head, and if they have an equal voice, they throw their decision out there, and if you have to listen, then you have to listen. So eventually, I just started taking charge of all those groups, and because I knew I'd be the fairest boss there was. I never did what I wanted to do. I just made sure everybody else got what they want, and because that way I knew either way I'm fucked. I'm not gonna get what I want. So this is the way. At least I can make sure everybody else is getting what they want, and we don't look stupid while doing it.
Right.
So I was like, and I had this idea. You and I talked about this once about reluctant leaders and why I think they're the best and why they happen.
The ones who don't desire the leadership role.
Yeah. Remember we talked about like Mal, for example, Reynolds from
Mhm.
Firefly. He's a little bit of that. But then a lot of the coolest leaders that I can think of in storytelling and movies, they're always that one, the reluctant leader.
Right.
Yeah. Like they're like I don't want to be doing this. I don't know why I'm in charge, but okay. Like Rick Grimes, for example.
Mhm.
People have issues with him, but I think he's a badass. He's doing exactly what he needs to be doing.
Or
And he's
Castiel from Supernatural. There's always the characters like, I don't want to be the leader, and they're like, but you are a leader. We need you.
Yeah, that's cool. Because a lot of people want to lead just because of how it makes them feel. It makes them feel like they're big and powerful and in charge, and they get to do whatever they want. Um, but the reluctant leaders are the ones who are just making the hard decisions, and then people start following them because they turn out being decisions that worked out pretty well.
So
But
in
I think,
games and in stories and in RPGs and in video games, what do you prefer? Do you prefer to be player one or player two? Do you like to be the leader or the person who does everything he can to facilitate the leader?
that's a hard question because I play support and healer and stuff a lot, but
Mhm.
that's because nobody does it. So I'm like the reluctant number two a lot, because everybody wants to be number one. But in games where I'm making decisions, a lot of the times I end up being number one reluctantly. So I guess either one I get put into, it's only because there's a gap there and it needs to be filled. I just do whatever's best for the group.
Yeah, that's what I do too. Like I like support. I like supporting people a lot, but oftentimes I'll end up being the leader because no one's doing it.
Hmm.
Like with
Yeah.
Devis, in your campaign, it's just like, well,
Yeah.
I guess I'm the leader now. But what I'm asking is like, ideally, like if there were people volunteering for both positions, which one would you like to do?
I typically don't trust people's decision making, so I guess I'd be number one. Not because I feel like I'm like should be a leader or anything, but only because people make the dumbest and the worst feeling in the world is going down on a sinking ship where you've got no voice.
Yeah,
That's
and
crazy.
especially when you feel like you could have avoided it if you'd been in charge.
Exactly, that happens a lot. Like even in D&D, like whenever I play a character that's the RP is that he's like demure, and like a kind of a chill guy, which hasn't happened in a long time because it's uncomfortable watching us like walk into the sorcerer's tower when the sorcerer's clearly there, or like or like that one where on Star Wars where we were going to turn in that bounty and trying to screw over a hut and the Empire or something like that. I was like, this is the worst. This is the worst idea.
I
So
didn't. I did not like this plan.
yeah, and you voice that, and then people shout you down, and you're like, I just kind of feel like that's still gonna happen. So I don't know. I feel like that my point of view is what's best for the group, so it's probably best that I lead anyway, because I don't care if I don't get what I want in a campaign. I just want to make sure everyone's happy.
Right.
So that is kind of a support role, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, a good leader is a support role in and of itself.
Hmm.
I think if you look at leadership as a support role, like you're the best kind of leader.
Huh. So I guess that's how I look at it. What about you?
I don't know. I was thinking about that too because I usually end up GMing or DMing, so I've had very few experiences as a leader or as a support. Um, but I think to me, I enjoy if there's a competent leader, my favorite thing is to support them, is to be like their right hand man. But
Yeah.
if in the absence of that, I will be the leader. But I think if I had my brothers, it'd be like a leader who's not an idiot, and I could support them.
Yeah. That's kind of how I am. because I like the decreased stress that it brings on,
Yeah.
and that's
And
always
you
desirable.
can really specialize in like whatever your role is, and just like you're like, you know what? If you need this, I've got this for you, Chief.
Yeah, and when you play the leadership roles, you always have to. You end up this disgusting amalgamation. You look like Stitches from or from Warcraft. Like
Right,
you're
because
this.
you just have to fill in all the gaps that your team is lacking in.
Yeah, that's what I did with Rafe, and that's how you were with Devis.
Yeah.
You're like I've got staff specialization for some reason because I had
And
to at some
magic, I
point,
guess, and some fighting. I don't know, whatever.
but now I got a sword and I don't even know. Like it's
Yeah. So yeah, I think ideally, like I feel confident as a leader, but ideally I'd rather have a really cool leader and I could just help them.
well, there's a cool dynamic though. Like I've noticed this of if there's two like leadership types, or the ones who are used to being leaders, like in a certain context.
Hmm.
Sometimes they butt heads, but sometimes they work together really well, and I haven't figured out the difference between those. Like, for example, look at me and Blaine in Star Wars. Yeah, in Star Wars, we the old Edge of the Empire, we butt heads all the time on ideas, and we end up just both doing two different things, and the party kind of splits down the middle and does and follows.
Yeah.
It's weird. But there's other times where you meet someone who is also like kind of used to making decisions, and then everything works fine. And I haven't
Like
figured out the difference.
when you and I were planning JT's bachelor party, it was just like, all right, we got leader one and leader two, let's do this, and it just worked.
Yeah,
So I guess
I don't
there's
know
a
what it is.
dynamic where you can have more. I don't know. It's interesting to look, just looking at the world with that sidekick hero lens and seeing like how people naturally gravitate.
Yeah, that's crazy. I remember all these books on like, are you a leader or are you a follower? And I always wanted to be like, of what? In what context? I don't know what you mean.
Right.
If I'm good at something, yeah, I end up probably being a leader. Like in basketball, I was really good, so I ended up like calling a lot of the shots until someone better than me came, and then they did. Or like, but in like field hockey, if I show up there, I'm not going to do any. I'm going to follow. That's what I'm going to do. Because leadership is really just about excellence. If you're good at something, then you're probably going to end up calling the shots, and people are going to follow you because you're winning. You're doing whatever it is well.
I think in video games at least it also comes down to like the experience I want the other person to have. Like when Joseph was here, I'd let him be the player one and everything. He was Link, in Hyrule Warriors. He was the hero of time, just fighting through. And I just wanted to have him have the most fun possible because he doesn't get to play video games very much. And so I was, I was Zelda, I was Rudo, I was Darunia, I was Sheik, I was whoever he needed in that mission to be his like number two person. I was there.
Yeah, that's how I am with heroes. Everybody's always like, who's the character, or like pick your character, and I always wait till everyone else shows up. Or if I don't, if people start showing up, I always change my character over and over again to fit the party best.
Because you want to
And
maximize the fun everyone else is having by picking a complementary character.
I don't get people who just say, fuck it. Like, they'll log in, and they'll join a party that's full, and it'll be like all damage dealers, and we clearly need a support, and they'll log in, and they're like, click on damage dealer, hit ready, and they queue up for the ladder. I'm like, what?
Yeah, that was like that D&D game where everybody was a striker.
Yeah, that was the one time I played a striker, because I never get to. And I was like, no, fuck you guys. For once, I played a striker.
D&D, strikers are the people who have low defense, but they do a lot of damage. So it tends to be a fun role to play because you're killing monsters left and right. You feel like a hero.
Yeah.
And so it's a popular class. So Jeremiah and I we usually end up being not strikers because everybody wants to do that.
Healer or
tank.
tank.
Healer or tank. The guy who takes the damage or the guy who heals the damage. And
The subtle roles.
so one time I'm running a game and I'm like, okay, everyone play the character you want to play, and everybody makes a striker.
That's because I had just played, remember Castlevania, Lords of Shadow? The first one. And I was like, Gabriel, what a cool RP. I want to play that guy. So I made this cool, like,
Avenger named Gabriel.
Religiously Avenger of, like, the Shadow Queen named Gabriel. And I was like, I want to play this character. And it's a striker. It has to be. And everybody else shows up to the table with strikers. And I was like, wait, I already said I was going to play this striker. And I was like, you know what? No, this time I'm not going to. Every single time I change. Every single time I change. This time I'm not. And we all died.
Yeah, you all died in like the first encounter.
I don't get it. How do those people exist? It's so weird. You just show up and you're like, it's like showing up to a potluck and everybody's like, I got chips too, I got chips. All right, see you then. Like that's just how does that work?
So I think
don't get it.
I think the takeaway maybe is it's less about sidekick and hero and more about are you willing to facilitate the most fun for everybody? Because if the team needs a hero or a leader, you'll be that. If the team needs a healer, you'll be that. If the team needs a sidekick, you'll be that. But I think the leaders we like are the ones who do it to help other people be heard. and the sidekicks we like are the ones who do it to help other. Like it's about making other people have the most fun possible
Wait,
or
but
the
then
most efficiency.
you also get the people who like look at like Joker and Harley Quinn.
Hmm.
Harley Quinn's clearly the number two there. Joker's the number one. But that's really just about like someone gravitating to a madman, or
Yeah,
like
it's a power
someone who's
dynamic.
yeah. So I think that happens too.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a reason we call them henchmen instead of sidekicks. There's like a dark side to it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Henchman. Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, like that's kind of like Batman. He never really wanted a Robin after the first one died or whatever, depending on the storyline. They
Yeah.
just showed up and they were like, fuck you, I'm part of your team," and he's like, "Whatever." Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of what's happening there because Batman, there's no way he's gonna be a number two. He's a dick. He's like, he showed up to the Justice League and he's like, "I formulated a way to kill all of you, and I'm just gonna let you know that. So fuck you all." And that's the worst team member. It's like, wow, that's horrible. You have your finger on the eject button, just waiting
Yeah,
to
but
like.
no one would put forth Batman as like the ideal leader, you know? Like Superman's
Yeah,
clearly the leader of the Justice League.
that sucks. He's like the Captain America of Avengers.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I haven't figured this topic out. I hope maybe we can get some feedback from the listeners.
Yeah, because
Uh,
I know it from a literary point of view. I know why people make sidekick characters, but I'm interested in real life, like what the optimal solution for that is, because I think it happens. Like you always have the guy who's like, "Yeah, boss," like the guy, the right hand man. Like that happens in real
yeah,
life, but why? And is that optimal?
yeah, man. I don't even know. Huh. Well, we've gone a little while. We might want to think about going into feedback session. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, sounds good. That's everything I wanted to cover.
Cool, yeah. And so we're leaving a question mark at the end of this in-depth analysis. Like, what is it? What do you guys think? So that's an appropriate time to move into the feedback session. So let's do it.
All right.
Okay, this is the feedback section where we talk about our interaction with the community. And first of all, you put up a survey, didn't you?
Yeah, I was just curious where people stood on the Gamergate issue from last week. So I asked, "What's your opinion of the Gamergate movement? Check all that apply." And it wasn't a very scientific survey. I tried to make it as unbiased as possible, or at least have as many options as possible, so you'd feel represented.
Oh,
But
yeah.
we had 6 votes. The most votes came for, "I wish we'd stop talking about them and move on."
Yeah, I think a lot of people are sick of them. I saw comments like that in whenever we were doing our research for Gamergate. I was trying to figure out what the hell it was. Top comments almost always were like, "Seriously, shut the fuck up about Gamergate. Who cares?"
Yeah.
But
And then the actually surprisingly the next 2 highest ones were, "They are badly misrepresented and misunderstood, and they are fighters against corruption."
hmm.
And nobody
Oh,
voted for misogynistic and toxic or other.
huh.
So
Well,
apparently, yeah, go
it
ahead.
just with a multifaceted thing like that. I mean, it really just depends on where you're looking in from. It's like it would be like asking politics. What do you think of politics? People who have had good experiences with politics might say like, oh, it's a necessary thing that helps keep humanity moving in the right direction. But the people who've been burned a lot, like me, or who's in the intelligence community, it's all the bullshit, uh, all the classified bullshit. I say fuck politics. There's no point. That it kind of there's no right answer. I think
Yeah,
because they're all right and all wrong at the same time.
right. So I think, but the majority just want to stop talking about them altogether, and I think we're both on that page too. I'm
Yeah,
just kind of tired of hearing it.
yeah, for sure. Me too. I'm tired of it because it's so much more complex than everyone's making it out to be. One person's like, oh, it's made up entirely of white nerds in their basement who are, assholes who threaten women's lives, and I'm like, yeah, that's some of them. And then other people's like, no, they're made up purely of of justice warriors who are fighting against corruption. I'm like, man, that's some of them. I think it's both.
Yeah.
So shut up.
Yeah, I think it's
Uh,
both, and I think every time we talk about, it, we're just giving more stage time to the fringe who are just the misogynistic fringe.
yeah, yeah, and they've just ruined any sort of good that could have come out of that movement. Because I think journalistic integrity is really good, and I like that video games are being a little more legitimized now. So that would be something I could get behind. But Fuck, not through this modality. That's
Yeah, it's the
horrible.
same reason we don't rally behind the feminism flag. It's certain flags have gotten so like the PR so bad around them, or the toxicity of certain members of the camp are so bad that it's just you might agree with the principles, but you just don't like that word anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's why I'm afraid that gamer might become with these assholes doing this stuff. I'm like, no, 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 don't fuck with that. I love being a gamer, you know. But I will bail if it keeps going like this, you know. And I'll be like, I'll call myself something else, you know, because I can't do that. Yeah, exactly like feminism. Actually, there's been, oh my gosh, their PR is the worst. They finally Emma Watson's doing it all right, so you know, like
Yeah,
maybe I could get
the
back
He
behind that.
movement.
Everybody can agree on it, just like she said. She's like, everybody agrees on the principles. It's just the word. Like egalitarian, humanism,
Yeah.
humanism. They all say they're for the same thing, but you'll notice a lot of vitriol whenever you say something like feminism. People are like, oh God, no, that's horrible or whatever. It's just a PR thing. Like the principles, I think everyone can get behind. Same thing with journalistic integrity.
Yeah, we can all get behind journalistic integrity and the fact that not all gamers are misogynists, but it's just the word Gamergate has become such a minefield. It's just so toxic that it's time to find something with less baggage, I think.
Yeah, everybody needs to eject because we're not doing any good for or against
Yeah,
it at
just
this
look at a
point.
functional analysis. Like, are you achieving the goals you want with that word? If not, we should find a new word.
Yeah, and no, I mean you got like celebrities, like a whole bunch of celebrities who are just calling you out on this bullshit now, and everybody seems to follow celebrities nowadays. So not nowadays, just in human nature. So yeah, bail on that. Both sides, just stop arguing about it. Who cares? You've lost that term. It's done. Uh,
So
you're not
we've
gonna save it.
yeah, and also again my pedantic. Stop putting gate on things. Stop it. Watergate. That's all we need. That's all the gates we need. So
I don't
just
know. You're kind of making a
because
big
a
deal out of
scandal
this.
doesn't need elevator gate, Watergate, whatever gate. Like stop. Gate does not mean scandal. Gate's the last part of a word that happened in Watergate. It's not. It doesn't intrinsically mean something scandalous. Anyway, that's just.
You get pretty worked up about that. Is that a
I'm so sick of
complaint
that.
gate?
It's just lazy journalism. Like, I'm sorry, Alec Baldwin. I love you and everything you've done, but that's just lazy. Stop
Or
putting
Adam Baldwin?
things. Yeah, Adam Baldwin.
I was like, you have an affinity for Alec Baldwin. That's weird. Never knew.
But
Yeah.
yeah. So moving on, we got an email from Joseph. He just wants our opinion on this quote he found. This quotation was on some. It looks like on. I don't know. Someone wrote it down. I don't know where it came from. No context given. But it says, eating meals at home is the strongest predictor of academic achievement and psychological adjustment. Elder Oaks. So Elder Oaks is a Mormon apostle, and so he's saying eating meals at home is the strongest predictor of academic achievement and psychological adjustment. Thoughts?
Is this for me?
I'm assuming it's for
I
you
imagine.
because of the psychological adjustment part.
Okay. I maybe is he citing a study or is he just stating
No
that?
study
Here's my
cited.
thoughts.
It just says eating meals is the strongest
Oh.
predictor of academic achievement and psychological adjustment. Eating meals at
Wow,
home.
this is sort of that traditional family worship that Mormons have, and traditional families are great. I love them,
Yeah, that's
but
what
I'm
I was
just saying
talking
that.
about with the where BYU kind
Yeah.
of colors its studies this direction.
Yeah. This is absolutely. If I had to make a prediction, if this was true, it's kind of like this. There's this weird shit that happens sometimes. Weird correlations. Like one is what the highest predictor item. So like a question on a big questionnaire for the a personality measure we have. The highest predictor for schizophrenia, for positive schizophrenia. Yeah, right.
Hmm.
The one item, because it works together with a bunch of different questions, but the one item is, do you enjoy cooking? Why? Why is that correlated so highly with positive diagnosis of schizophrenia? Why? I don't. Nobody knows. But the point is, it is. And so it could be like one of those, like rich
Or
people
like
mow their
rich
lawn
people
more.
mow their lawns. Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Yeah, it's a weird correlation. So it could be here, but if it is, it's through a third variable. There's clearly something else going on there.
Right, and then it's one of those directionality things too.
Yeah, I would not. Yeah, it's directionality exactly. I would not start saying like if you want to be okay. Strong support structure for children, along with the fact that like if you're high socioeconomic status and high IQ is probably going to be the biggest predictors for those. but
Right.
that
And if
also
you have
happens to correlate.
strong social status, you're probably having the luxury of eating meals at home. But it doesn't mean that the meals that
Yeah,
you're eating at home are making you successful.
exactly.
It's a side effect of being successful.
Yeah, exactly. So if it is, that's exactly what I would say to that. I don't know. That sounds like no, it doesn't sound like that is an empirical statement. And if there is an empirical study based on it, then I definitely want to see it. And obviously that wouldn't be the reason why you're, because if I took a poor black or Mexican or some other minority youth and then just said eat meals at home, then I should expect that they're going to be successful. I don't think so. No, that would be
Right.
stupid. In fact, Mexican Americans are very big on family, and they're not doing so well because of a lot of reasons. Definitely not because they're not eating meals at home.
Yeah, they're
So
definitely eating meals with their families. So,
exactly.
yeah, again, predictor is such a weasel word because things can be predictors and have nothing to do with what they're predicting.
Yeah, exactly. It just means a correlative. It's correlative.
Yeah.
Um,
Correlation does not equal
correlation.
causation.
Yeah, anybody who runs, I guess that's not that many people. So if you run statistics, you'll see this stuff pop up all the time. These like positive correlations where you're like, what the fuck? Because it happens. It's just weird. So that's why people say repeat that study. You know. Anyway.
Right.
But yeah, that's an interesting quote, and I love how religious leaders get to just be armchair psychologists, and they just get to do this without any research. They just make
Yeah.
these
Or they're
statements.
like, I'm a counselor because I'm a religious leader. It's like, well, how does that make you good at counseling?
Yeah, I don't know because religion and psychology both have the same mission to tell people how to get the good life, the Socrates thing. What is
Right.
the good life and how do I get it? And so we step on each other's feet a lot, except the only difference is ours is with science and they don't like science. So it sucks. We end up like getting in toe to toe. I lost a couple that I was working with because they went to their pastor and they wanted religious counseling. They're like, it's not working here, and I was like, I told you it wouldn't work because you're not working on anything, and you guys don't. Oh, you're the worst. Like, they were just one of those treatment-resistant couples who wouldn't do anything I told them to, barely listened, and would argue with me anytime I said like, well, let's try this exercise. That's not gonna work. Okay, well, maybe it won't. But is there any chance it will? No. Huh. Would you try it anyway, even though you're having these thoughts that it's that? No. Okay. And so they ended up going to religious counseling. They're not going to do any better there unless they, I don't know, because maybe they assign that a spiritual, antibiotic to it, where if you believe it, then you'll start working towards it. And if they work towards it, they'll probably get better.
Yeah.
But yeah, that bugs me.
So,
Oh, well.
so if you have any more emails, questions, you can email us at thegametheorypodcast@gmail.com, or you can post to our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/gametheorypodcast.
Yes, or you can tweet at us, twitter.com/GameTheoryPod. We've had a lot of interactions recently, and that's just because we got some new interest and some new followers from our guest appearances and having guests on our show. A lot of interactions, so apparently we became a little more popular. But yeah, so be a part of that group. Let's do it. I'm not real great at Twitter, so you'll have to be patient with me, but I'll be on there.
Right. And always, if you are feeling charitable and you don't have any money to donate to sick kids with cancer, but you still want to scratch that charity itch, leave us a review at iTunes or Stitcher. Tell us what you think.
Yes, yeah. There's some kind of like math that goes into that, where every time you do that, that helps us out too, like directly. So not only is it just nice of you, it also really does help.
Right.
So, yeah, something to say in this section. This is always fun. But anyway, so next episode, what do we? I have an idea. There's this Sean put me in contact with someone who's a game developer. Maybe we could talk to them. But at least that's on the back burner.
Okay. Some game developing episode.
Yeah, that would be good. And if not, then we can do one of the other ones we got on the back burner for a while. So.
Okay. So next episode, there will be more game theory goodness
Yes.
to be announced.
All right, but until then, thanks for tuning in, guys. We really appreciate it, and thanks for all you guys do. We will see you next week.
See you then.